Which one is this one, Gary?
Dorado Azul Guayafolius officinalis. And a beautiful oil. This is our crop. This crop is exactly 6 weeks old, and it's almost ready to harvest.
Beautiful. Looks excellent.
Yeah, Mark, just take a smell of that.
Oh, I love it.
Isn't that fabulous? And look at here. You can zoom in here. Look at the little blue flowers. See them?
Gotcha.
And see the blue leaf? When it starts to mature, you see it's just starting to turn around the edges here, blue. And now here's a more mature one. Look at the beautiful blue and green. Isn't that magnificent? Almost a purple blue with the blue flowers.
Gorgeous. Does that keep turning?
No, that's about it. Until it dries out from drought, and then it all goes brown. That's why I call it golden blue. Dorado Azul. We don't have any history of this plant yet. Like the rest of the Ecuadorian plants here, we're doing a whole library of bricks analysis on our plants now, every hour, every day, until we find out the right distillation time, right harvest time, and right distillation time. We're distilling right now the Dorado Azul, so we're learning.
When do you expect this particular stand of foliage to get harvested?
Well, we will probably start harvesting this in 2 weeks. We'll get into full production. Have over 30 acres here of this plant that we planted, and in another field there's another 30 acres. And after we harvest, then we'll replant. We'll get at least 3, probably 4 crops a year from this harvest, or from this plant. Isn't that an amazing fragrance?
Love it.
I'll tell you, the future of what we have in Young Living is just, it's beyond anything that anybody could imagine.
Oh my God. Well, I don't think that aged very well. Maybe people would disagree with us. I'm trying to be fair in some of these videos. I'm sharing that they actually do have some things they grow some places, but it's not to scale. In my opinion, they need to support their customer base. Wow. This is episode 4B of the transcript reading of Young Living v doTERRA. We've got our lovely offer by Sky on the screen, and it's doTERRA lawyer trying to smash it, Young Living lawyer with us in a lemon essential oil. So
I love it.
Yeah, I'm DC. I'm an MLM dropout. I left Young Living in April of this year, 2022, and I don't know. I have a lot to say, and we were provided these transcripts by Kira, and it's been incredible so far. She also gave it to some other creators. We're happy to share all the info. Yes, Mommy. She has her own website. She and she's an activist. Kat's an activist. They do incredible work, and I jumped on their train, and we're doing stuff. So I don't know. I do anti-MLM, anti-scam, like don't exploit people content. It kind of we live stream a lot. I like talking to people. I like talking to people like co-hosts. I like talking to the live chat. So that's why I live stream a lot. And I also have kind of a busy job, so sometimes editing is not in the cards. So I like this format. I'm gonna pass the mic over to Kat, and I'm gonna go run and get a drink really quickly. So, Kat,
There's
please.
so many people to say hi to. Hello, everybody. I was logged in, and so I could pull up comments before, but right now I'm not. I just used a link to get on here, so I cannot pull up the comments. But my name is Kat. I'm a licensed registered dietitian nutritionist and online nutrition coach. I focus in on sports nutrition, prenatal nutrition, and also digestive health, which a lot of MLMers like to say gut health. They've kind of taken that term and run with it. But I like to create anti-MLM, anti-scam, anti-diet content, mostly on YouTube. I'm trying to do more on Instagram, but it's just I try to do Instagram and then I get off track with it. But I just like to break down diets and diet scams and nutrition misinformation because there's a lot of it out there and a lot of people with food fears, and we don't need to do that. So
I love that. And, Kat saved the day the other live stream when we were watching a young living Royal Crown Diamond claiming that camel milk cures autism. So yeah, I don't even know what to say. A lot of these health and wellness multi-level marketing companies, and they're individuals that do not seem to be corrected in an effective way that protects consumers. It is wild. And having people like Kat who are trained and licensed to combat the misinformation is incredible, and we need more people like her in this. And
it happens to the most vulnerable. And I would say also, like with my because I was in an MLM before. Technically, I was in Young Living, but I didn't know it until it was expiring. Just because I was helping my friend purchase some oils, and she signed me up to be a distributor, which I did not know. But I was in another MLM actively, and it was at a time when I first became a dietitian. I was a baby dietitian and was surrounded by medical doctors, registered nurses, pharmacists, other dietitians in that company specifically.
Wow.
And so I was like, well, who am I to question what all of these people who have had years more experience are telling me? So and I was also in a very vulnerable place of just being a brand new military spouse as well, moving to a new duty station that I didn't know anybody yet. So yeah, it was just a perfect time for me to jump in. Not really perfect time, like positively, but negatively.
Yeah, it kind of creates a perfect storm. I had moved to a new duty station as well when I joined my first multi-level marketing company, and it's just, I don't know. And again, not just vulnerable people get targeted, but it seems that a lot of vulnerable people in situations that make them kind of ripe for the picking, so to speak. And it seems like multi-level marketing reps take advantage of those people in those situations. And I don't think it's right. And I definitely don't appreciate it now that I'm out. And yeah, they always do the most when they do medical claims.
You know what? I had it's gone inactive, but I had a military spouses like against MLM Facebook group. It'd be good to resurrect it.
Yeah, I would
want to be part of that.
I would join it in a heartbeat. Yes.
I made it, and then Deanna Mims. Do you know Deanna?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
She's one of the admin in there as well, because when her husband was still active duty. Oh, I think I don't know what he is now. I can't remember. Okay. But yeah, she's great. Yeah, I'll add you to it. Let's see if we can resurrect it.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and share from remove from
No, it was a Facebook group, Jess.
Okay. Add. Okay, I'm going to. Oh, no, sorry. Go on. I'm sharing my screen. I'm going to exit this. I had the other video popped in there, and then I lost track because I had so much fun talking to you. Okay,
so we're finishing the direct examination, right?
Yes, of Justin Harrison. Yes. And HTTP. He's still in, from what I understand. He is still in doTERRA. Okay, start mirroring. I'll share your screen. Start.
Anti-MLM Military Spouse Support Group. That's a long name. There's only 28 people in there.
That's okay. I love it. I will join. Let's see. Open as pop-up. We're going to make this thinner. Great. Okay, we're back. All right, let me pop this in here. Video file, share screen. And we're back. Let me take this little fun artwork off because we have to put. Oh wait, did I put the right? Who's? I think. Let me just double check who is. Oh, Mr. Toth is. And
Toth
is
is
Mr.
blue.
Toth is blue? Okay. Do you want to just start reading? This is the page we left off as. Do you want to just start at the top and start reading? So we.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Are we doing any voices?
Oh heck yeah, we're doing voices. What live chat? Was I the polite demon lawyer last time, or were we baby snark? I think we were polite demon lawyer. I don't remember. It's been a while since I got to stream with Kat, so
Because it was your birthday, you were
Yeah.
traveling, and
yeah, I'm back. I'm glad to be back in the swing of things. I really enjoy these live streams with Kat. I really like going. Y'all know I love a long format content. And I like looking into these transcripts to get a full perspective of like the conversation, the backstory of what's going on. So live chat, y'all get to vote since you're here. Hello to everyone. Here's your options. You've got two options.
We've got Baby Snark, which we were doing Gary Young with, and we've got
Polite Demon Lawyer, and that's for Mr. Toth for Young Living. Let me know which one I should do.
All I remember is there were two Jeremys or Justins. Yes, there are two. There's Justin Toth is questioning Justin Harrison. Yep. Cool. Have a great time at the pool, Tanya. I don't know. I'm indecisive and y'all always make great decisions, and I'm just gonna wait till y'all respond. First comment is what we're gonna do. Oh my goodness.
who's it going to be?
What's it gonna be? I'm gonna take a quick drink. Mr. Toth is a little bit complainy sometimes, so
That is true.
he at least
Baby.
reads that way.
Who's
Baby
going to be Baby Snark?
Yes, because we can flip flop. Justin Harrison is the. I have the voice mod on my end. Which parts are we reading? We're reading Justin Toth, which is a lawyer, and we're reading Justin Harrison, which is a doTERRA rep. So I could I have the voice mod on my end. So whoever y'all want to mod, that's who I'll read. So Gary's Baby Snark. We can make the other guy the lawyer. I mean, I think Gary's claimed Baby Snark forever. Always Baby Snark, but the demon lawyer is always okay.
Baby Snark on.
Yeah, Charlene said Baby Snark for Gary, but we're not questioning.
Lawyers, Baby Snark. There we go. First one.
Great. Okay, let me go back. We're going back.
We're ready. Okay.
All right. So I am Justin Harrison. I believe she gave 2 weeks notice. She was still employed.
Is it still your testimony that she didn't tell you that she had resigned from Young Living the day before?
Correct.
And you weren't talking to her about the fact that you were going to resign the next Friday. I'm sorry. The following Monday?
No, my recollection is I told her on Monday I had resigned, and she looked at me and said, quote, "Guess what? So did I," end quote. And that was an in-person conversation.
Can you give the jury any testimony as to what you were talking about with Lil Shepherd on Saturday morning, the day after she resigned?
Mr. Gaylord says objection, argumentative, asked and answered, Your Honor, and the court says overruled. Back to Justin Harrison. No specific recollection, no.
Mr. Toth, let's switch subjects and talk a little bit about Emily Wright for a minute, okay?
Okay.
Go ahead and look at Exhibit 21, your phone records, sir, and please turn to page 63.
Okay.
Look at line 63. I'm sorry, that's page 63, line 218.
Okay.
And you had on November 12th, 2007, while you're still a Young Living employee, you had a 30-minute phone call with Emily Wright. Do you remember that?
I do not.
And is it you were discussing with her at that time the new essential oils company they were going to start, weren't you?
No recollection of the call.
Sorry. You didn't tell her you were really excited about joining the company in the call?
Again, no recollection of the call.
None whatsoever?
0.
Well, let's advance the ball a little bit here. Let's look at your phone records on page 98 of line 53.
Sorry, what's the line again?
Sure, it's line 53.
Okay.
See that?
Yes, I do.
And that shows an incoming call from Miss Wright for almost 40 minutes. 38 minutes you spoke with her. Do you see that?
I do.
January 30th, 2008. That is just over a week before you resigned from Young Living, correct?
Right.
And you told us you were already thinking about resigning from Young Living before the day you actually resigned.
Correct.
And do you consider Emily Wright a good friend?
I do.
Someone you'd share confidences with?
Yes.
Miss Wright is talking to you about joining doTERRA, wasn't she?
As stated, I don't remember any of the calls with Emily. I was surprised to see there was any.
So a 40-minute phone call, you got nothing in terms of what that was about?
It must not have been memorable.
Let me ask you another question then. Maybe this helps. Maybe this will help your memory about what you talked to her about. When you hung up the phone with Emily Wright, who did you call next, literally right after you hung up?
I don't know.
That's Lillian Shepherd, isn't it?
Is that the same number you referenced earlier?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And you literally hung up the phone after that 38-minute call. Then you had an 11-minute phone call with Lillian Shepherd. Did you tell Miss Shepherd that you were talking to Miss Wright about?
No idea.
You didn't talk to her about the fact that you were all planning to leave Young Living and go to work for doTERRA?
No.
And the fact that you happened to call Lil right after, once again, right after you got off the phone with Emily, that's just coincidence, right?
I have no recollection. It could have been names.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about Mr. Sterling, okay? And could you put up Exhibit 13? That's been previously admitted. This is just an email chain between Rob James and David Sterling, and we saw this exhibit yesterday. Do you remember Mr. James testifying yesterday?
Yes.
And I'd like you to focus particularly on a statement made by David Sterling, okay? And I'd like to highlight and blow up, please, because I know we can't see it from over there. I'd like you to highlight and blow up a particular line out of this email from Mr. Sterling that was written in December of 2007. And in particular, you say here, he says, quote, Justin is a regional distributor, so for him to call you is very unusual, other than he's one that still cares. Justin is dying to join us as a distributor, exclamation point. Do you see that?
I do.
Did you tell Mr. Sterling prior to December 27th, 2007 that you were dying to join his new company as a distributor?
I did not. Nope.
Did you tell Emily Wright that in any of your phone calls with her?
I did not. No, not that I'd recall.
Did you ever tell David Hill that?
No.
Wait, look, catch.
If you're just joining us,
Hi.
oh wait, hello. Sorry. If you're just joining us, we're reading transcripts, and we're trying to make it less dry by doing voices. I'm not sure if you're if you're in the live chat, make sure to switch over to the live chat, not just top chat, and then so that you can see all the conversations. There's 2 live chats going on, one on Kat's channel, one on my channel. So if you're team Whiplash, you can hop between chats if you want to. Some people do. We try to take breaks to put comments up, and yes, their memory is literally wiped. They remember nothing apparently. So yeah, we're reading through this, and we're reading through it because in these transcripts, there's information that directly contradicts the PR campaign Young Living and doTERRA do about their oils. And essentially, no pun intended, they're not a lot of the Young Living oils seem adulterated, and they don't have enough farms to actually produce to meet the need of the distributors and the customers that Young Living has. So they apparently source some of their oils, which it directly contradicts what Young Living says, that all of their oils come from farms. And then now they're playing catch up, and now they're saying, oh yeah, we do source. Well, which is it? And why were you telling your distributors that you never sourced anything? Because quote unquote seed to seal meaning they kept an eye on the product from seed to production to bottling the product, and that there's no adulteration, and that doesn't seem to be the case. So all right, Baby Snark,
We're back. Am I on line 17?
I believe so.
Okay. Do you think Mr. Sterling is lying to Rob James in this email?
Mr. Gaylord says, objection, Your Honor, lacks foundation, speculation. And the court or the judge says, I'll sustain that as speculative. Back to Mr. Toth.
Do you have any understanding of how Mr. Sterling would know that you were dying to join his new company as a distributor?
Mr. Gaylord says, object to form. Oh, it's so fuzzy. Let's see. Mischaracterizes testimony, assumes facts not in evidence. And the court says sustained. And back to Mr. Toth.
Sorry, I think my internet's being awful. So if it's fuzzy for the live chat, it should render after we publish it for sure. So sorry to Kat. Mr. Toth, do you believe that Mr. Sterling was just making that up?
Mr. Gaylord says, objection, Your Honor, argumentative. And Mr. Smith says, same objection. And the court says sustained. And back to Mr. Toth.
Let's turn back to Exhibit 51. Do you remember we talked about this request for information a little earlier in your testimony here this morning, sir?
I do.
Let's blow this document up a little bit. Do you see the statement? Again, it says, quote, the company is requiring this request for information before discussing or describing the company, its business, products, or any opportunities therewith, end quote. Do you see that?
I do.
That's not true, is it?
Mr. Smith says, objection. The question is vague. And vague as phrased. And the court says overruled. Mr. Smith says that it calls for speculation of what the company is requiring. And back to Mr. Toth.
It's just asking if the statement is true.
The court says I'll allow it. And me, Mr. Harrison, says, I can't speak for the company.
Mr. Toth says, I'm asking if that statement is true, sir.
Mr. Smith, objection as to form. The court says overruled. Back to Harrison, I don't know.
Mr. Toth, you don't know whether it's true or not?
I believe they required this from everyone in the early days.
Right. We'll come to that in just a minute. In fact, you had talked with the owners, agents, employees of doTERRA prior to February 12th, 2008, the day you signed this agreement, hadn't you?
Correct, but not about doTERRA.
And you had talked to them about your plan at doTERRA, didn't you?
No.
And so if Rob James testifies that you had a plan for what your future was at doTERRA, that's just not accurate?
Mr. Gaylord says objection, mischaracterizes testimony, assumes facts not in evidence.
Go ahead.
And the court says, I'll allow it.
Sorry, Your Honor. Wrong process in my head.
Back to Mr. Harrison, the witness. Okay, rephrase. Sorry, restate.
Sure. My question is if Rob James's testimony was you were describing what you were going to do at doTERRA on February 7th, you just disagree with that? He got it wrong?
Mr. Gaylord with another objection. Your Honor mischaracterizes testimony. The court says, I'll let you pursue that on cross. Back to Harrison. I do disagree with that. I don't recall. I don't think I would have said that.
Mr. Toth, even though that would have occurred on February 7th?
Right.
Okay. Did you think that by signing this request for information, you would prevent Young Living from making a claim that solicitation occurred with you?
I don't recall that I would have thought about that form.
Even though you knew the statement made in the document wasn't true when you signed it?
Mr. Smith, objection. Question is compound as phrase, as it misstates the witness's testimony. And the court says, I'll sustain that. Back to Mr. Toth.
Mr. Toth, Mr. Harrison, have you ever heard the term, quote, whitewashing, end quote?
Nope.
You never heard of the idea you whitewash something to prevent people from knowing what you were doing?
Whitewashing a fence, maybe. That's it.
White painting a fence. You've never heard the term, quote, whitewashing, end quote?
No.
Never heard of that?
Negative.
That's what this document is for, isn't it? This is a whitewashing.
Mr. Gaylord says, objection, Your Honor. And Mr. Smith says objection. The court says sustained. Back to Mr. Toth.
Let's switch subjects and talk a little bit about Young Living Distributors, okay?
Okay.
You understand that Young Living claims that you improperly solicited certain Young Living distributors to join doTERRA, correct?
I do understand that as a claim.
And you were only aware of 4 Young Living distributors who contacted or communicated with you about doTERRA during this relevant time period, correct?
Mr. Gaylord says objection, vague as to the time period. And the court says sustained. Back to Mr. Toth.
You're only aware of 4 Young Living distributors who contacted or communicated with you about becoming a distributor at doTERRA in your non-solicitation period?
Mr. Gaylord again says objection. And Mr. Toth.
Correct, Gaylord.
Gaylord says vague outside. Mr. Smith said, I would object, Your Honor. There is a motion in limine on this subject matter as to how broad this question is. I think this is an attempt to evade that motion in limine. If it's the question, the rulings at issue, then I don't have an objection. Court has already ruled against the plaintiff. Back to Mr. Toth.
To be clear, Your Honor, it's not, and we're not using any of what Mr. Smith is referencing to for that purpose. It won't be used, period.
The court says, let's just rephrase the question to clarity.
Okay. Your prior sworn statement is that only 4 Young Living, you only contacted or communicated with 4 Young Living distributors about doTERRA in your non-solicitation period.
Mr. Gaylord says, same objection. And Mr. Smith says, yes, Your Honor, same objection. The court says overruled. Finally. All right. Back to Harrison. He says, I don't recall a specific number. Mr. Toth?
Isn't it your sworn statement that you've only communicated with 4 Young Living distributors about doTERRA, and that each of them contacted you about it? Isn't that your sworn testimony, sworn statement?
I don't recall it from memory. No.
Okay.
Mr. Smith says, do you have a set for me, please? Mr. Gaylord says, you can use that one. I've got one. That was random. Okay, back to Mr. Toth.
Mr. Harrison, I've handed you what's been marked as defendant's answers to plaintiff's first discovery request that were served back in March of, received by my office from you back in March of 2013. Do you have that in front of you?
I do.
I'd like you to turn to page 40 of that document. Yes, sir. 40.
40?
40, yes, sir.
Okay.
And the back of that is a document called a verification. Do you see that?
I do.
Is that your signature on that verification page?
It is.
And it says it was, quote, subscribed and sworn to me 12th day of March 2013, end quote. Correct?
Right.
There is a notary signature at the bottom of it, right?
Right.
I'll read it. Quote, Justin Harrison, being first duly sworn on his oath, did say that he is a defendant in the above entitled action, that he has reviewed the foregoing response to plaintiff's first set of discovery requests to defendants, and that each responses are true and correct to the best of his knowledge, except as to those matters therein stated on information and belief. And as to those matters, he believes the same to be true and correct. End quote. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'd like you to turn to page 16 of this document.
Okay.
There is what's called an interrogatory. That's a written request by Young Living asking you to give them some information back in writing. Do you understand that?
Yes.
And the question that was posed to you was, quote, identify every current and former employee or distributor of Young Living with whom any of defendants, end quote, one of those being you, quote, communicated or otherwise contacted directly or indirectly concerning becoming an employee or distributor for doTERRA, whether or not such person ultimately became an employee or distributor for doTERRA, end quote. Did I read that correctly?
You did.
Let me ask you now to turn to page 17.
Okay.
Do you have that in front of you?
I do.
Could you read that, could you read what your sworn answer was?
Mr. Gaylord says, objection, Your Honor, sidebar. And the court says, come on up. A sidebar discussion was had. Back to Mr. Toth.
All right, Mr. Harrison. Your Honor, Mr. Gaylord, do we want to try to enter exactly what the ruling is? Your Honor, can I ask Your Honor to articulate, sorry, it was sort of a colloquy? What? Colloquy of all of us on there. Articulate on the record.
The court says it's on the record.
Okay, great. We'll just proceed.
The court says, yeah, the jury didn't hear, but the mic picked it up. It's on the record.
Okay. Now I've got to remember where I was. Mr. Harrison, we've established that's a sworn statement, correct?
Correct.
Would you please read your answer to the question that was posed to you in those written interrogatories? Would you please read that?
The question?
Yes, sir. No, not the question. I've already read that into the record. Just your answer to the question. Maybe it would help just to. Can I read the question back into the record and have him answer it?
The court says, sure, that's fine, so he knows where we are.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think I gave Mr. Harrison my copy. Mr. Gaylord, thanks.
Mr. Smith.
The question, sir, that was posed was, quote, identify every current and former employee or distributor of Young Living with whom any of defendants communicated or otherwise contacted, directly or indirectly, concerning becoming an employee or distributor for doTERRA, whether or not such a person ultimately became an employee or distributor of doTERRA, end quote. Could you read us your answer to that question?
Quote, other than Jason, Nancy, Mr.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Please continue. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure, trying to make sure we were honoring the...
Did not contact any former employees or distributor of Young Living concerning becoming a employee or distributor for doTERRA, end quote.
Thank you. In fact, you deny having conversations and communications about doTERRA or joining doTERRA with any of the Young Living distributors who are at issue in this case, correct?
At this time, apparently, to the best of my recollection, I did.
Okay. At that time you did?
At that time.
So, if I put this right, if I just show you this, sir, and show this to the jury, this chart, you deny having any communication about joining doTERRA with Mr. Anderson.
I do.
Or with Susan and Peter Bagwell?
I did not speak with them after they joined, yes.
Okay, what about to Miss Hay? Any conversations with Miss Hay about joining doTERRA?
Not about joining, no.
What about the Herberts? Any conversations with the Herberts about joining doTERRA?
No.
I already read that, sorry. What about Mr. Jellings? Do you deny that?
I recall answering some of her questions.
But you deny asking her to join?
Yes.
What about Jan Meredith? Do you deny have any conversation with her about joining doTERRA?
I don't recall any conversations with her about joining doTERRA, no.
What about Rio Ogawa?
No.
Didn't have any conversations with her about joining doTERRA?
I don't believe so, no.
What about Susan Montgomery?
I do. Oh, wait, I don't recall a conversation with Susan.
What about Boyd and Sandy Truman? Any conversations with them about joining doTERRA? Do you deny that?
They were in doTERRA when I met them.
What about Gina? What about Gina Oldroyd Truman? Any conversations with her about joining doTERRA?
No, I think she probably knew about everything before I did. She was already in.
You deny having any conversations with her about having her join doTERRA?
Correct.
Thank you, sir. Let's change subjects. You were already working for doTERRA in February 2008, correct?
No.
In fact, you were recruiting new distributors to doTERRA in February of 2008, correct?
I don't believe so.
Would you agree with this network? With network marketing, there's often a lot of hype around the launch of a new company.
Mr. Gaylord says, objection, vague, and the court says, overruled. Back to Harrison, he says, that is often the case. Not always.
Mr. Toth said, would you agree with me that you can build a large team even before you process one application just on the hype that it's going to happen?
Mr. Gaylord says, objection, foundation. The court says, overruled. Back to Harrison. You could say that.
Okay, break for a second. You absolutely can build a huge team on just hype. You know why? I've been in network marketing. I've been in multi-level marketing. We've seen it happen when big teams switch. They
We see it
bring
with
their
Elamir. We saw it with Elamir. I
Yes.
mean, people are jumping ship now, but that's what happened. That's how they were able to get started. People started talking about them because of the hype.
Yep, and you basically get placeholders where you say,
Mhm.
okay, you're gonna join, and then you like sign them up in order of how you want to stack them. And that's my opinion, but that we've seen that happen.
Mhm.
Mr. Toth is all over the place. I feel like he's almost on the verge of like a break of like frustration, and he's a little like, I don't know, hyper about things. He's also Baby Snark, so he's just getting a whole personality of his own.
Awakened. Yep. Elamir
Hey,
now
girl.
Awakened. There's so many.
Hello,
There's
Ella.
another one that came out today. Was that the Awakened one?
Really?
Mm-hmm.
They're
remember.
literally wild. I know there's like a lash one coming out, or it's like a makeup, or maybe it's already out. I don't know.
I forgot what it was. Jess, what was it? Trying to look back. I can't remember. But yeah, one today.
Wow. And we're waiting for a big announcement from Beachbody about
Oh, really?
they're changing the compensation plan, because all of
Oh.
the big leaders who have not worked their business in years are doing all these join groups and stuff. So Ashley Molstad hadn't done like recruiting in probably 3 years, and she's done a huge push ever since the convention they had, or summit, or whatever it's called. And so have a bunch of other big leaders. So we think like something's about to change, because they're gonna be announcing something in the October or the earnings call that they're gonna be doing. There's also a coach event this month, so I think we assume, we are guesstimating that something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
yes.
So you thinking that she's now recruiting so that she can continue to maintain income from that, or?
Yep, I think so.
Yeah.
Yep. It was probably Awaken. They said they were opening in October. That's good to know, Jen.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember.
Someone in the chat, let us know. Let me see.
There's so many.
I know. They're out of control. Okay.
They really are. And they have the exact same products. I mean, I feel like that's what I was sweeping earlier and just kind of in my own head. And I have just said the same thing over and over in so many of my videos. And I was thinking like, man, next spring, it'll be 3 years since I made my first like anti-MLM deep dive video and on the nutrition side. And so many times I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over. And I'm like, are people getting tired of it? Like, are people, can I still keep talking about it? But I still think it's relevant. So
it is relevant. Yeah, you don't know who's going to be able to find it and watch it. And again, when I found some accounts, like then I went back and watched all their videos, and I found out all this stuff about. So I think absolutely keep making content. Hey, Christina.
I say the same thing a lot. All right.
And again, it's one of the things we got to keep repeating. So
yeah.
Okay, where were we?
Mr. Gaylord says objection, foundation. Oh, Harrison says you could say that back to Mr. Toth.
Okay.
You could say that about basically that there's hype.
Okay.
So 8.
Okay, let me put on.
Okay, I'm back. Mr. Toth is back. You'd agree with me. In fact, that's true, right? You could build a huge company before it's even launched just on the hype that it's going to happen.
Mr. Smith says objection, incomplete, hypothetical. And the court says overruled. Mr. Smith says irrelevant. And Mr. Harrison, the witness, says, I've seen that happen. Yes.
Normally,
he has seen the hype.
Yeah, but
normally, the witness is supposed to wait for the court to the court was supposed to respond to Mr. Smith saying objection irrelevant, but I guess we didn't. We just kept going. So okay, so seen that happen. Yes.
Okay. And you believe that can happen?
It could happen. I don't believe it always does. Yes, it does, Mr. Harrison.
You've now heard Rob James's testimony that he attended a presentation you gave in St. George for doTERRA on February 28th, 2008. Do you recall his testimony?
I do.
And you recall he said he gave you a fantastic presentation. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Did you give a fantastic presentation on February 28th?
Did I give a presentation?
You don't know?
Fantastic is questionable.
Okay. Mr. James thought it was fantastic. You don't dispute his view of it, do you?
That's such a weird question. Mr. Gaylord says objection. Mr. Smith says objection. Inappropriate question. Facts not in evidence. Calls for speculation. And the court rightfully says sustained.
Mr. Toth, you were telling everyone at that meeting about doTERRA, weren't you?
We were talking about essential oils.
Is it your testimony to this jury that you weren't talking about doTERRA at that meeting?
Oh, no, we were.
Okay. You were trying to get people at that meeting to join doTERRA as distributors, weren't you?
I was teaching that class as a favor to Gina Truman.
Sorry. Is it your testimony that you didn't want the people who were listening to you to join doTERRA?
Nope.
Okay. You wanted the people who were listening to you at the meeting to join doTERRA, correct?
My assumption is that most, if not all, of them were already in.
That's not my question. Move to strike.
The court says, I'll grant the motion to strike.
You wanted people at that meeting to join doTERRA, right?
Well, they couldn't yet.
Again, sir, that's not my question. You wanted people at that meeting to join doTERRA, right?
I would assume so. I don't recall specifically.
You'd agree with me, wouldn't you, sir, that wanting people to join doTERRA and giving a presentation to have them join doTERRA is soliciting them to join doTERRA, right?
Mr. Gaylord says objection. Mr. Smith says objection, Your Honor. Mr. Gaylord says legal question. And the court says sustained.
Mr. Toth says you were trying to take away those distributors from Young Living, were you not?
Mr. Gaylord says objection. The court says sustained. And Mr. Smith says motion in limine on the subject precludes the testimony. And the court says sustained. Back to Mr. Toth.
Even though doTERRA was not processing applications in February 2008, you knew you could build a large team just on the hype that there was a new essential oil coming into the market, oils company coming into the market, didn't you?
We need to have like didn't you merch or something. You need to, didn't you? Okay, Mr. Gaylord says objection, lacks foundation, assumes facts not in evidence.
He's just testified.
The court says overruled. Mr. Harrison, the witness, says, I don't know that I felt that way at that time. No.
Mr. Toth said, let's talk a little bit more.
I have a question about a break, having a break.
Sure, absolutely.
Bladder, sorry.
Not a problem. I can use the same thing. I'm drinking a lot of water up here.
The court says we can take a break and yeah.
So, let's see.
Let's see what we can skip. Thank you. The jury left the courtroom. Recess taken. Jury entered the courtroom. Let me just see if this is actually. Oh, it's questions. Okay, we got to read it. All right.
Okay. We're back on the record. Jury's present. Pick up where we left off with the direct examination of Mr. Harrison, who is still under oath. Back to Mr. Toth.
I'm going to move this, Your Honor, obstructing Mr. Harrison.
Mr. Smith says, down the hall would be fine down there too, Mr. Toth.
You want me to? I can try for the back of the courtroom. It might be. I'm pretty loud. Everyone will probably be able to hear me, okay? Mr. Harrison, when we left off on just our quick break, you were talking about this meeting that occurred on February 28th, 2008. Do you recall that?
I do.
So let me kind of try to reorient us. Let's take everyone here in the courtroom back to that meeting on February 28th, 2008, where you were making a presentation about doTERRA. Okay?
Okay.
That presentation occurred in Gina Truman's house, correct?
Yes.
And she lives in St. George?
She did at that time.
And again, when Mr. James was on that stand Wednesday, do you recall him testifying that the Herberts were at that meeting? Gordon and Julie Herbert.
I do.
And do you recall the Herberts being at that meeting?
I do recall Gordon being at the meeting. Julie was not.
But you specifically recall Gordon there?
Yes.
Sorry. He's someone you know well?
Very well.
You've known him a long time?
Many, many, many years.
Actually, you knew him before you were at Young Living, correct?
Yes, many years before.
He was at Young Living the entire time you were working at Young Living, correct?
As a distributor.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're right. That's an important clarification. Mr. Herbert is a distributor for Young Living, correct?
He was, yes.
I'm sorry. Another bad question by me. Mr. Herbert was a distributor for Young Living, correct?
Yeah, he was the accounts. I think the accounts in his wife's names. I think the accounts in his wife's name, actually.
And Mr.
This
Herbert,
happens a lot with MLM, by the way. My direct upline signed up her husband. My direct upline, the top upline, her husband was also, and he didn't do like anything in the company at all, but he was a high level distributor, and like he didn't know anything that what was going on. She built his entire team.
Yep. That's what happened in my team, Nesting Well. Brooke Kristen, she's a public figure. She is a blogger, and she is a Crown Diamond in Young Living. She, I think, is about to be Royal Crown Diamond, which is the top tier. She's already built her husband up to Diamond or Platinum or Diamond. And so she recruits enough people to fully build another team. And she's also built her own team and other people's teams on. And she built part of my team to bump up my upline. So she recruits a lot. So it does happen that.
Yeah. And then if like you earn like bonuses on each people below you, and so they're putting their spouses right underneath them so they can earn their 5% extra bonus or whatever it is for the company. So they're like double dipping and getting more income because of that. And their spouses like don't do the work.
Yep. Okay.
we're back. I don't remember what line we were on.
So it was 17.
Okay. And Mr. Herbert and Julie Herbert, and they were Young Living distributors for the entire time you were working at Young Living, correct?
Yes.
And obviously the meeting was at Gina Truman's house, and she was at this February 28th meeting also, wasn't she?
Yes.
And she's someone you knew and worked with while you were at Young Living, correct?
I was familiar with her, yes.
And you know who Boyd and Sandy Truman are, correct?
I do now. I did not know. I did not then.
Okay. And Boyd and Sandy Truman, you heard Mr. James say that he thought Sandy Truman and Boyd Truman may have been at the meeting, correct?
I did hear him say that, yes.
Do you remember anyone else who was at that meeting?
That's where I met Wendy and Rob for the first time.
But you had talked to them on the phone prior to that meeting.
Yes, that's where I met them for the first time. I didn't know anyone else there.
You knew all of those people were Young Living distributors in February of 2008, correct?
No, I didn't know them.
You didn't know what?
The attendees.
No, I'm sorry. My question wasn't clear. I apologize. You knew that Gordon Herbert, Gina Truman, Boyd, and Sandy Truman, you knew those were all young living distributors.
I knew that Gordon and Gina were. I did not know Boyd or Sandy at all.
Your testimony is that you didn't even know Boyd and Sandy Truman were young living distributors?
No.
At least at that meeting in 2008?
They weren't at the meeting. I don't recall.
You don't recall one way or the other?
Negative. If they were at the meeting, they were not introduced to me.
Do you recall seeing Gordon Herbert at the meeting?
I do.
Do you recall seeing Gina Truman at the meeting?
It was at her house. Yes.
Do you recall seeing her there?
Yes.
You know, when you went down to have this meeting on February 28th, that there would be young living distributors in that meeting, correct?
Mr. Gaylord says, objection as to form to the extent it seeks to go beyond the scope of this court's order. And the court says, rephrase.
Mr. Toth, you know that you were going to. You knew that Gordon Herbert was going to be there at that meeting, correct?
I don't know if I knew that. I didn't invite him to go.
Do you recall having numerous phone calls with the Herberts between the time you resigned on February 11th and that meeting on February 28th?
I think we had a lot of calls at that time.
Hey, Kira.
Hey, Kira.
I don't know where I'm at. I'm sorry.
8.
Oh, 8? Okay. Do you recall having numerous phone calls with the Herberts between the time...
Wait, I don't think you rephrased. Did you rephrase? I got sidetracked.
You knew that you were going to. You knew that Gordon Herbert was going to be there at the meeting, correct?
I don't know if I knew that. I didn't invite him to go.
Do you recall having numerous phone calls with the Herberts between the time you resigned on February 11th and that meeting on February 28th?
I think we had a lot of calls all the time.
That's not my question. My question is, do you recall having phone calls with Mr. Herbert or Mrs. Herbert between February 11th, 2008, when you resigned, and that meeting on February 28th, 2008?
I don't recall the call details, no.
You don't recall? And my question is a little different than that. Okay, sorry. I interrupted you. Sorry.
No, I was starting to say, and my question is a little different. I don't know why I started being Mr. Toth.
You're good. You don't recall, and my question is a little different than that. Do you recall having phone calls with them during that time period? Not the details of them. Haven't gotten to that yet.
I don't.
You don't even recall having phone calls with them? And would you say that in those phone calls, that if you had phone calls with them during that time, you weren't discussing this February 28th, 2008 meeting, correct?
Mr. Gaylord says objection to form. If he had foundational, he doesn't recall. If he had, he's trying to. If you want to refresh his recollection, that's one thing.
Mr. Toth, his testimony is he had a lot of phone calls with them. He may have, but he doesn't recall any. That's why I posed the question, quote, if you had phone calls, you weren't discussing what was said in the meeting, end quote.
The court says I'll sustain the objection. Back to Mr. Toth.
Do you recall Mr. James's testimony earlier that even the Young Living crowd was impressed with your presentation?
Yes.
Did you have any discussions with Rob James at that presentation about the Young Living crowd?
I don't believe so. And Mr. Gaylord says objection, vague. The court says overruled. Mr. Gaylord says Young Living YL crowd. I mean, we've only identified 2, and the court says overruled. Back to Harrison. Sorry, I thought I answered. I don't recall any conversations about that. No.
Oh my God. Mr. Toth, you'd agree with me, wouldn't you, Mr. Harrison, that when you were conducting that meeting with the Young Living crowd in the room, you were trying to get those folks to join doTERRA?
I would not agree that it was a YL crowd. I didn't know the people in the room.
Okay, well, let's just take the words, quote, YL crowd, end quote, out of it. You knew there were people. You knew at least there were some people. Let's not split too many hairs here. You knew there were at least some people in the room who were Young Living distributors, correct?
I knew of 2.
You knew of 2. Okay. And you were making a presentation hoping to have those people join doTERRA, correct?
Yes.
In fact, you were giving them your best sales pitch to join doTERRA, weren't you?
I was educating them on the benefits of the oils.
Okay. In fact, Gina Truman joined doTERRA, didn't she?
At some point, yes.
And Gordon Herbert joined. Gordon and Julie Herbert joined doTERRA, didn't they?
I believe it was just Gordon Herbert, actually.
Joined doTERRA, didn't he?
At some point.
And Boyd and Sandy Truman joined doTERRA, didn't they?
At some point.
At that presentation, do you remember our discussion about exhibit? I believe it's exhibit 51. It was the request for information that you signed on the February 12th meeting with the doTERRA executives. Do you recall that document?
I do.
When you went to this meeting, you required the people in the room to sign the request for information, like the one you signed, didn't you?
I don't recall doing that. No, I don't think so.
Well, you brought those requests for information with you for people to sign, didn't you?
No.
Was there anyone there from the corporate office of doTERRA at your presentation in Gina Truman's house?
No.
The lawyer didn't come down and hand those out at the meeting?
No.
Do you recall anyone collecting them back after people signed them at the meeting on February 28th?
Mr. Gaylord says objection, foundation, and the court says sustained. Back to Mr. Toth.
Do you recall Rob James's testimony on Wednesday that he had no recollection of signing that document on February 28th?
Okay.
And you don't remember?
Mr. Smith says, Your Honor, I would object to that line of questions that counsel continues to ask of, do you remember what some other witness says? It's inappropriate. And the court sustained the objections earlier, but it has a tendency to maybe mislead the jury. I asked counsel be admonished not to say what Lillian Shepard said or what other witness said, not appropriate examination. And the court says your response, but I want to say hi Sonic. I think.
Oh, hi.
Like,
hi, Sonic. I'm so happy to see you.
Yeah. You're back.
Hi. We're so happy to see you. big non-culty love to Sonic.
You're back.
Love to see you.
Okay, the court says, any response? And Mr. Toth says,
yeah, Your Honor. I've asked Mr. Harrison about several things that everyone has heard Mr. James testify to. And I asked him, did you hear him testify to this? And if he says yes, if he says no, I didn't hear it, We're done with that. If he says yes, we'll proceed.
And the court says, to a certain point, it's appropriate to direct the witness about the line of questioning. So I'll allow it on a limited basis for that purpose. Back to Mr. Toth.
Thank you, Your Honor. So you don't remember the people in the room being required to sign the request for information?
Mr. Gaylord says, asked and answered. The court says, overruled. And back to Mr. Harrison. I don't remember that. No.
You were worried that you were violating your non-solicitation agreement with Young Living by making this presentation on February 28th, weren't you?
Mr. Smith says, objection calls for a legal conclusion. The court says, sustained. Back to Mr. Toth.
By the way, when you joined doTERRA as their master distributor on April 1st, did you ever tell anyone at doTERRA that you had a non-solicitation agreement with Young Living?
Mr. Gaylord says, objection, foundation, and the judge says, sustained. Back to Mr. Toth.
Let's talk a little bit about Gordon Herbert. I think you said you known Gordon Herbert for some time, correct?
Correct.
And you said he was at that February 28th meeting in St. George, correct?
Correct. Right.
And do you recall the time period I'm going to give you is February 11th, the date of your resignation, and April 14th, 2008. Okay, that's a 3-month period. Do you recall speaking to Gordon Herbert on the phone or Julie Herbert on the phone during that time period?
I do recall calling Gordon to tell him I had resigned.
Would you be surprised if your phone records reflect that you had done dozens of calls to his phone numbers during that time period?
No.
Would you be surprised if your phone records show that you had conversations with Mr. Herbert the day before your meeting on February 28th in St. George?
No, that wouldn't surprise me.
Mr. Herbert joined doTERRA in mid-April 2008, correct?
Mr. Gaylord says objection, foundation. The court says sustained. Back to Mr. Toth.
Do you know approximately the month when Gordon Herbert joined doTERRA?
Mr. Gaylord says object to form. The court says overruled. Back to Mr. Harrison. I don't know the exact month. It was early.
Would you agree with me that he was one of the early group that came over to doTERRA?
Yes.
And by, quote, early, unquote, I mean April of 2008.
Yes.
And when Mr. Herbert came over to doTERRA in April of 2008, you were his enrolling sponsor, correct?
I don't recall. I don't know if that had been decided yet.
Do you have any reason to dispute the fact that you were his enrolling sponsor?
Mr. Smith says objection, assumes a fact not in evidence. And Mr. Harrison says no. The court says overruled. Back to Mr. Toth.
Just for a sidebar, when someone makes an objection, the witness is supposed to be quiet until the court rules. So that's and that's not legal advice. That's just like etiquette. I don't know all the rules, but you should we'll let the court do what they're supposed to do. So okay, I'm back.
Yeah.
Mr. Herbert is now a high-level distributor for doTERRA, isn't he?
Mr. Gaylord says objection, high level, and the court says sustained. Back to Mr. Toth.
Mr. Herbert is now a doTERRA distributor, isn't he?
Yes.
And the phone calls you had with him, the meeting you had with him on February 28th, is it your claim that you weren't asking him to join doTERRA?
Yes.
And the fact that he joined doTERRA in April of 2008 had nothing to do with your communication or presentation to him.
My belief is that he learned of doTERRA from Gina Truman, who he shared an office with.
That's not my question. My question is, your meeting on February 28th, the phone calls you had with him. It's your testimony. Oh, wait, crap. It's your testimony that had nothing to do with why he joined doTERRA.
The Mr. Gaylord says, objection, lacks foundation. Why he joined doTERRA is up to Mr. Herbert, not this witness. And the court says, sustained as speculative. And Sonic, yeah, there's... So we've been reading this case.
Yes, we have been. Let me give you the 30-second spark notes. Young Living sued doTERRA because they got upset that a bunch of their distributors left and their part of their executive team left to make a new company, and doTERRA supposedly was attempting to make an actual like good oil because they were aware that, and this is allegedly from what I understand from this, that Young Living's oils were adulterated, or it wasn't seed to seal quality that Young Living had been proclaiming for years and years and years. So Young Living said, no, you don't get to make more money than us. We're going to say you broke our agreement. And they, I guess, believe they did. So this whole trial is them trying to establish, hey, you messed up your non-compete, or so that they could not join or sell or solicit Young Living distributors for a certain period of time after leaving Young Living. In the process of these documents, there's 4,000 pages of transcript, and we're on page 732, if that gives you any idea of where we are at. I'm making a Spark Notes videos, but I literally have been so behind. I have the script for it. I'm going to read it. They're going to be able to catch you up to where we are in like 5 minutes or less. So we're going to be doing that. I will record it today and get it edited and posted.
That's
for
a good
tomorrow.
point from Kira. She has some of the, yeah.
I feel very itchy about like saying like this, but Kira has actual like reports from people. So if you go to her account, she's been doing this for a long time. I joined late. I got out of Young Living late, but I'm out now. And again, Sonic, we're so happy to see you. I'm trying not to be like too excited because I don't want to like scare you away, but like,
right. When I saw it, I was like, are you back? Like, did I miss something? Have you been back? Yeah.
Yep. And we're I thought all of these old videos very young, that are wild.
Check out Mombi, some of the stuff that she has posted about it regarding some of the stuff that we have covered already, but some of the stuff that's in the future as far as like how Gary Young was administering oils, things like that, doing surgeries, being involved in that when he should not be involved. Sketch.
Yeah. So Sonic, here's a funny part. When Gary Young was being cross-examined by counsel, they were saying, so you were not one of his own counsel made the mistake of calling him doctor, or was that Young Live? No, that was doTERRA. They said Dr. Gary. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean Mr. Gary Young. And so I think that was his counsel that made that mistake. And then the doTERRA counsel was like Mr. Gary Young. They made a big deal about saying Mr. because he was not a doctor. And Gary Young said, no, I wasn't moonlighting as a doctor. I was just part of the surgical team down in Ecuador, which you're splitting hairs. And then Gary Young also claimed that some of his people who worked for him were taken over by Satan. And he said that wasn't religious speak, that was spiritual perspective or whatever it was. So we found a lot of tea. It kind of gives us a little glimpse into the atmosphere that was going on at Young Living. And it's been a wild ride so far, and a little bit more fun with the voice mods so that we can laugh a little bit, because reading transcripts can be dry sometimes. So, and we've been having a blast that people have been joining us for the stream. Just realize you're live, so watching from the beginning at 1.5 speed. That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yay. Thanks so much.
Snark sounds very high pitched at 1.5 speed. Oh, yeah. Yep. It's just wild. Okay. I don't remember.
Okay, so sustained as speculative by the court. Back to Mr. Toth on line 7.
Great.
We're back. Let me change subjects a
Oh,
little
wait.
bit.
Do you want to read Kira's comment first?
Oh, no. Yes, I do.
Okay. So let me just get it. Let's see. So there's the Jasmine and Birch Dr. Pappas found adulterated. Consumers Advocate found the lavender adulterated. Reps found cinnamon and thieves are adulterated. I have the test results of cinnamon and thieves. That's incredible. And again, we're not trying to promote doTERRA over Young Living, but there needs to be something to be said. If you are claiming and you built your whole brand about not having adulterated oils and that you will never share your testing results with your consumers, and then when the oils are tested, they're found to be adulterated, that's a huge problem. That's a huge problem. And Kira, I feel like, is the primary source of good information to find on all this stuff. She does a lot of work behind the scenes. She spends a lot of time doing a lot of non-fun grabbing of screen recordings and doing really like complex searches on the internet using the Wayback Machine to try to find this stuff to protect the consumer. So it's incredible. It takes a lot of time. Not a lot of people want to do it, and Kira has done it faithfully for a very long time, and it's incredible. It is incredible. Okay.
We love you.
We do.
Okay. Let me change the subject a little bit. Did you ever discuss with Mr. Herbert other distributors that he knew other than Young Living distributors that he knew?
I don't believe so.
Did you ever ask Mr. Herbert to contact other Young Living distributors to contact you about joining doTERRA?
No, I don't believe so.
You knew that you weren't allowed to indirectly solicit people to join doTERRA, right?
Mr. Gaylord says objection, lacks foundation. The court says overruled. Mr. Gaylord says calls for a legal conclusion too. The court says overruled. Back to Mr. Harrison. He says restate that.
Sure. You knew you weren't allowed to indirectly solicit people, Young Living distributors, to join doTERRA, correct?
I did not.
Let's talk a little bit about Boyd and Sandy Truman. In fact, I'm going to put up, if I may, Your Honor, really quickly. Since we have lots of different names in this case, I think it might be helpful just to put up our little board, just so the jury will be seeing a lot of these folks. We've been talking about Gordon and Julie Herbert right here. Now, I'd like Mr. Harrison to talk to you briefly about Boyd and Sandy Truman. Did you know Boyd and Sandy Truman's parents, Carol and Delmont Truman, while you were working at Young Living?
I did.
Sorry. What? Oh, yeah, I see it.
19.
Thank you. And you knew Gina Truman, Boyd's sister, Gina Truman, from Young Living, correct?
Correct. Yes.
And you knew who Boyd and Sandy Truman were while you were working at Young Living. Did you not?
I don't believe so.
Had no idea who they were?
No.
Do you recall Boyd Truman being at your February 28th meeting?
I do not.
Do you recall that Boyd and Sandy Truman were part of the initial group of people to join doTERRA?
Yes.
And again, when I talk about that initial group, I mean the group that came over in April of 2008.
Yes.
Okay, that was your testimony, correct?
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about Greg Anderson, the individual on the far left side of our chart there. Mr. Anderson's phone number. Oh, let me redact. Let me go. Sorry. Okay, let me just get my little buttons up so I can quickly do this next time.
Okay.
There's test results on other oils that came back okay. Most of this testing is old. 2019 for the lavender, 2016 for the thieves, cinnamon, and others. Not sure in the dates for the jasmine and birch, but pre-2013 trial. So there definitely needs to be testing.
Yeah. And
occurring.
again, I was told in 2019 that all of this stuff was BS, that it was someone trying to take Young Living down, that the test couldn't be trusted, that I shouldn't put too much weight on it. So all these tests being done in 2019, there were people being told, hey, it's fine, when there's tests, at least on some of them. And across the board, they were saying, oh no, they're all fine. And so it still feels, at least not everyone had the correct information to share with their downline. And it could have been an easy fix where Young Living could have said from the beginning, we're so happy that we're growing so quickly and our commitment to seed to seal is unwavering. However, we need to source some materials to keep up with the demand. And here's who our source farmers are. Give us a list. And because we know this is a deviation from our initial plan, we're going to put testing available, and we're going to have that testing available on our site. That could have been an easy, albeit maybe expensive thing to maintain the integrity of your position on seed to seal, and they didn't. So
Transparency, it's not that hard to do.
Yeah. Yep. It's not. Okay. We're redacted.
All right.
We're back. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Greg Anderson, the individual on the far left side of our chart there. Mr. Anderson's phone number, and he's testified to this, his phone number is redacted. Would you have any reason to dispute that?
Mr. Gaylord says, same objection, Your Honor, to the exhibit, proving it up. And Mr. Smith says, assuming that being the number, I have no objection, but it's subject to a motion to strike. The court says, I'll reserve ruling on it. Thank you.
Whoops. Sorry.
I'm assuming it's thank you.
Yes, sorry. I had my
There you
redacted. Kind of
Mr. Harrison says, I don't remember his number from memory.
You were here for opening statements?
Yes.
Do you recall the defendant's counsel said that Mr. Anderson will testify that he learned about doTERRA from Gordon Herbert? Do you recall that?
I do.
And did you know that Mr. Anderson will say that he talked to Mr. Herbert about doTERRA on April 6th, 2008? Did you know that?
I did not.
Would you be surprised if your phone records reflect a phone call between you and Mr. Herbert on April 8th, 2008?
I saw donuts and I got distracted.
Line 18.
No.
Okay. Let's put up Exhibit 21, Mr. Harrison. Would you please turn to page 143 of Exhibit 21?
Sorry, 143?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 143.
Do you have that in front of you?
I do.
Let me direct your attention to line 372.
Okay.
Do you see that?
I do.
I'll represent to you, sir. Oh, wait, redact.
Oh, no. Okay. Yeah, we need newer testing because Mary's saying that they need to cut costs since they're operating at a loss and there's history of adulteration. They need to be like transparent. I don't see why it's that difficult. Yeah. Bet 2 donuts. I will bet 2 donuts that every oil is adulterated. Yes, I will take those donuts. Okay.
I'll represent to you, sir, that redacted number is Mr. Herbert's phone number, okay? Subject to the objections of counsel if that's not proved up.
Mr. Smith says, thank you for making it for me. And back to Mr. Toth.
Just trying to move everything along. Do you recall that you were speaking with Mr. Herbert about on April 8th, 2008?
I do not.
Did he tell you that Mr. Anderson was going to be calling you the next day?
Again, no.
Did he tell you that he had met with Mr. Anderson and shared doTERRA oils with him only a few days earlier?
I don't recall the conversation, so no.
Let me move to page 144 and look at line 106. We're going to look at your phone records from April 9th, 2008.
Sorry, line 106. There's not
Line 406. I apologize if I said 106.
okay.
You did that. We'll blow up line 406 and highlight that. You'll see there's an incoming call from Mr. Anderson's phone number on 4:50 in the afternoon on April 9th. Do you see that?
I do.
Did you discuss doTERRA with Mr. Anderson when he called you on April 9th?
No recollection of a call with him.
You don't know whether you were talking to him about... Can you think of any other reason Mr. Anderson would be calling you?
Mr. Gaylord says subject, and the witness, Harrison, says no.
You weren't a personal friend of Mr. You weren't a personal friend of Mr. Anderson, were you?
I wasn't, no.
Okay.
I had met him before at Gordon and Julie's house.
You knew he was a Young Living distributor?
Yes.
Is it your testimony you didn't say anything on April 9th, 2008, in that phone call to encourage him to join doTERRA?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Anderson shortly thereafter became a distributor, correct?
Mr. Gaylord says objection, foundation, and the court says sustained.
Do you know whether Mr. Anderson was enrolled under Mr. Herbert's organization?
I believe he is, yes.
And so you know he's a doTERRA distributor now. Mr. Anderson is, correct?
Yes.
Let's switch subjects and talk a little bit about Jan Meredith right here.
Okay.
I think he's pointing to his board, and so I think he's pointing and he's saying right here. It's confusing.
Yeah,
Jan Meredith is currently a doTERRA distributor. Is that correct?
Correct.
And
no. Redact.
Hold on. Ah! Okay, I'm redacting. Okay.
If you want to, you have access to pull up comments on your side.
No, I don't have access.
Oh, poop.
That's why I haven't been pulling them up. Because I signed out and I signed into
sign
my...
back in. Yeah, if you feel free to sign back in if you want to. And you're I've always
I know I redacted in the upcoming one, the cross-examination. There was some.
I'm sure these
so
are
Tara, most of it is the long chemical names. I can't top off or name. So this is blah blah blah. What was this? Oh, asking about what it was adulterated with. So there are long chemical names. You can't name off the top of your head. Each type of oil had a different adulterant. Thieves had cinnamon, cassia, and vanillin, for example. Thieves is a blend, right?
Yep, it is. Thieves is their magical cure-all blend.
Lavender had linalool acetate.
Shoot, let me pull that up.
Where is Dave?
He's I don't know. He's just been gone for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We all miss Dave very much. Okay, let me go back. I missed the page. I was trying to let me go find my little redacted. Okay, got it. We're good. All right. I think we're good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We're back. Mr. Anderson, wait, where are we? Line 3?
23 or 20.
Okay, sorry. And she testified that her cell phone number is redacted. And
wait, were you?
I think
yes, you were, because we talked about Jan Meredith.
Oh, wait, sorry, yeah. Yes. And she testified that her cell phone number is redacted and her home phone number is redacted. Would you have any reason to dispute that?
I don't know her numbers.
Subject, yes. Subject to counsel's objection to proving that up and establishing that that is her phone number during that testimony, we'll proceed on my representation. Okay?
Okay.
You spoke with Jan Meredith on the phone in May 2008, correct?
Correct. Is that where is it? I don't recall. I'm changing the whole thing. Sorry. Okay.
The outcome of this trial is it's like an alternate ending in those little books where it's like choose your own adventure. We're doing the choose your own adventure transcripts.
He does not recall.
Good.
He did not. In the question of speaking to Jan Meredith on the phone in May of 2008, Mr. Harrison does not recall.
Okay. Wait, I don't. I'm sorry. I'm so bad. Where are we?
10.
I'm sorry. Like
My reading comprehension is not great, and so like
I completely flipped.
no, I will switch things around, but I'm also like get distracted by things, and I'm like I don't even remember where I am. Okay.
Correct just sounded like it was going to be the right answer, but no, I don't recall.
Let's look at your phone records. Let me ask you to turn to page 161 of your phone records.
Okay.
And let's look at line 112.
Okay.
And let's look at line 113. On May 1st, you make a phone call to Jan Meredith's cell phone. And then at 5:34, you make a phone call to Jan Meredith's home phone number. Do you recall making those calls on May 1st?
I don't.
Do you recall leaving a message for her?
I don't.
Let's now turn to the next day, May 2nd.
Same page?
It is on, I'm sorry, sir, it's on page 162. I think it's on the next page. It's the next day, May 2nd. Let's look at line 149. Highlight that, please. And can you also highlight 152? Do you see there on May 2nd, those are two phone calls where you called Jan Meredith's home phone number on May 2nd. Do you see that?
I do.
And you spoke with her for 45 minutes at 4:47. And then another 10 minutes at 5:56. Do you discuss Jan Meredith joining doTERRA in those phone calls?
No.
It is your testimony you didn't encourage her to join doTERRA at any point during those phone calls?
No, that would be memorable, so no.
Why would that be memorable?
I think it would be a unique conversation.
Why would it be unique?
Asking them to enroll.
Do you recall anything that in your testimony to the jury here today, do you recall anything that you said in those phone calls?
No.
Is it fair to say, sir, is it fair to say that you don't even recall these phone calls? Making these phone calls to Jan Meredith?
Correct.
And you don't remember the ones. Do you recall ever having any phone calls with Jan Meredith? If you weren't looking at your phone records, would you have any recollection of having?
I do have one recollection of her calling the office ecstatic about lavender. She was screaming in happiness.
I'll represent to you that Jan Meredith's testimony will be that she signed up to join doTERRA on May 2nd. Do you have any reason to dispute that?
Mr. Smith says, object, Your Honor, form of the question. And the judge says, sustained. Back to Mr. Toth.
Do you know when Jan Meredith joined doTERRA?
A date? No.
But in any event, it's your testimony that the phone calls we see here, these were all. You don't recall what was said on these.
I don't.
But the phone call that you said you recall her calling doTERRA, you said called what offices?
She called the doTERRA office.
And you recall talking to her about lavender?
I recall them putting her on speakerphone to share her excitement about being able to put lavender all over her body for the first time in her life and not break out in a rash.
When did that call occur?
I couldn't say.
You don't know whether it was before May 2nd or after May 2nd?
I don't.
Now, let's turn our attention to Judy Jellings, this lady right here. Judy Jellings was a Young Living distributor, correct?
Correct. And I can't imagine putting oil like all over my body. I feel like I would just get a headache. That is so
That's
strong.
a lot. Yeah, agree.
That's a lot.
Agree.
Okay, correct. Judy Jellings was a Young Living distributor. Yes, correct.
And now she's a doTERRA distributor, correct?
Yes.
Do you know if Miss Jellings is testified? Do you know if Miss Jellings testified that she became a doTERRA distributor on April 29th, 2008? Would you have any reason to dispute that?
No, I don't know when she was.
If Miss Jellings, oh, go back. Sorry, I need to redact. My bad. Okay. Let me just. Okay, this page safe.
Best oil is cooking oil. Not doTERRA oils, not Young Living. Don't cook with those oils, please.
Okay, we're back. Oh wait,
Let's take a comment break real quick. Sorry, we'll just pop some of these up.
One of my favorite kind of stores is those, they're oil stores, typically olive oil, but they have different blends of like flavors infused with them. Those are awesome. Not MLM related at all.
Cool.
High quality olive oils for like dipping bread in.
Yes.
love
Yes.
it.
I think I don't know. Some people put it in their lotion. Some people
That
are
is
very
true.
sensitive. Some people are pretty sensitive, and I just recently, having not used Young Living oils for like 6 months or however long it's been, I was popping some of my rubber bands in my hair with some of my leftover like orange or citrus oil, and I had it's not a true allergic reaction, but I had to take my inhaler and I had to take a shower because I couldn't stop coughing. So I am sensitive, I guess, to that now, which is wild because I was not sensitive before. So
I
it's
prefer unscented lotion.
Yeah.
No essential oils in food. No, don't do it. I had a client one time. She would every morning she would start her day with lemon essential oils in her water. That was not fun. She was having some digestive issues too. So I was like, let's just take that out.
Yeah.
They don't mix together, oils and water, and you're just drinking straight up oil with that.
Yeah.
First thing in the morning, no food.
Isn't it like concentrated because the oil collects to itself in the waters just by or whatever?
It's just hydrophobic. It doesn't mix well, so all the oil is going to stay on the top, and she's just waking up.
Drinking it and it's not diluted, really.
No. I mean, just with the other water, like right after it. But if she doesn't finish it all or anything, just in general, like don't. That just sounds painful.
Yeah.
Not recommended.
Yep.
Okay, we're back. If Miss Jellings testified that her cell phone number is redacted, would you have any reason to dispute that, subject to counsel's objection of having that proved up through testimony?
Mr. Gaylord says, no objection, subject to that. I need to object to the prior question and recognize I'm late on that. He continues, Mr. Toth continues, can we approach? The court says yes, and a sidebar discussion was had. Back to Mr. Toth.
I understand that Mr. Gaylord's objection was late, but I also want to go back and address that.
The court says, all right. Back to Mr. Toth.
Harrison, if Mr. Jellings testified that she became a doTERRA distributor on April 29th, would you have any reason to dispute that?
No.
Let's go back and look at Plaintiff's Exhibit 21, and specifically, sir, would you turn to page 127?
Okay.
Do you have that in front of you?
Yeah, I do.
Let me ask you to turn to lines 449 and 450 on page 127.
Okay.
Do you recall what you spoke with Miss Jellings about during those phone calls?
I do recall having a conversation with her. I don't know if it was this date or time.
Okay, let me ask you to look at when you say, do you remember you say you remember a conversation with her. Is that correct?
A conversation? Yes.
This conversation that you remembered, do you remember when it took place?
I don't.
So you don't know whether sometime in the year of 2008?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Let me ask you to look at page 130, line 562. This is, we were just on March 19th. We're now moving ahead to March 25th, 2008. If you look, sir, at the page 130, lines 562, this is, we were just on March 19th. We're now moving ahead to March 25th, 2008. Wait, I just read that. Sorry. What? He's repeating it. Okay.
I need a break from Mr. Toth for a second. I'm like, oh my God. The way he questions people, it's like he doesn't think through his question. And then he's like, oh, wait, no, I'm changing. Oh my God. Okay. I'm back.
21.
I'm back. Okay, fair enough. Let me ask you to look at page 130, line 562. This is, we were just on March 19th. We're now moving ahead to March 25th, 2008. If you look, sir, at page 130, line 562, you'll see a 24-minute phone call on March 25th between you and Miss Jellings. Do you see that?
I do.
Do you have any recollection of what that phone call was about?
I don't. It may have been the one phone call that I can recall. I'm not sure of the date.
And now let me ask you to look at March 31st, 2008, which is page 138, line 135 on your phone records. It's March. Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison. Counsel was just helping me through this. March 31st, 2008. If I may, if I said may, I apologize.
Is that page 138?
Yes, sir. Yes. Page 138, line 135. You had a conversation, a 17-minute conversation with Miss Jellings. Do you recall what that conversation was about?
I don't. I just recall one conversation with her.
Do you know one way or the other whether Miss Jellings' distributor application is dated April 1st, 2008?
I don't know. Do not know.
Is it your testimony that during any of these calls you never said anything to pursue Miss Jellings to join doTERRA?
No.
Do you recall during this time period talking to Lillian Shepherd about getting Miss Jellings to join doTERRA?
I do not.
Did you and Miss Shepherd both agree that Miss Jellings would be a good person to add to doTERRA's distributor ranks?
No, I don't think so.
If you didn't think Miss Jellings would be a good distributor to have at doTERRA, why were you calling her?
Best I can recollect, she had questions on our commission structure.
Is that the only thing you can recall from this conversation?
It is.
Okay, so all the phone conversations between you and Miss Jellings, the only thing you can recall is that she had questions about the commission structure?
Correct.
And your testimony is that in those discussions, you never told her you ought to join doTERRA.
No.
Okay, let's switch conversations. Switch our conversation and talk a little bit about Peter and Susie Bagwell, okay?
Okay.
Did you speak with Peter and Susie Bagwell about doTERRA prior to the time they signed up?
Mr. Gaylord says, object to foundation. The court says overruled. Back to Mr. Harrison. He says, my recollection is that I spoke to them the day they enrolled.
Okay. And do you understand that the day they enrolled was April 3rd, 2008?
I don't recall the exact date.
Okay. Well, let me show you let's move directly to Exhibit 21. and Mr. Harrison, sorry, I'm just gonna redact real quick.
Yeah, those olive oil stores, they can be really pricey. I think at one time, most I got at one time was like 3 or 4. But yeah, they all taste so good. So you can add those up really fast.
Okay, well, let me show you. Let's move to, wait, where am I? Oh, am I on line 13?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Okay, let me show you let's move directly to Exhibit 21. And Mr. Harrison, Miss Bagwell will testify that her cell phone number is redacted, subject to having Miss Bagwell testify about that and confirm that phone number. Do you have any reason to dispute that?
I don't.
And let me direct your attention to page 140 of Exhibit 21 and look at lines 230 and 232.
Okay.
And I'll represent to you, sir, that your phone records, April 3rd, 2008.
Okay.
That is the day that the Bagwells signed up, correct?
I don't recall the date that everyone rolled.
You had one phone call for 2 minutes and another phone call for 19 minutes. Do you see that?
I do.
And do you recall having Emily Wright on that phone call?
I'm not certain. No, I don't believe so. I don't recall. Sorry.
What do you remember talking to Peter and Susie Bagwell about? Strike that. I'm sorry. Do you remember whether you were talking to Peter Bagwell or Susie Bagwell?
It was Susie Bagwell.
Okay. Do you remember talking to Susie Bagwell? What do you remember talking to Susie Bagwell about on April 3rd, 2008?
She called in excitement that Peter had already submitted his form on the fax machine for enrollment.
Oh boy. Now, these are your phone calls outgoing to her, correct?
That's what it appears, yes.
And you said that you told her that, and you said that she told you on the phone call. Let me get this right. Do you now know that Mr. Bagwell submitted an application on April 3rd, 2008?
She would have said it on that call.
So you remember that being said on that call?
Correct.
Have you ever seen the distributor application that Mr. Bagwell submitted?
No,
Do you know whether it's dated April 3rd, 2008?
I don't.
Do you know whether or not it shows what time it was submitted?
No.
Okay. Is it your testimony that you didn't say anything to encourage the Bagwells to join doTERRA?
Absolutely.
Did you tell her in those phone calls to take her husband Peter off her Young Living account?
No.
You're absolutely sure about that?
Certain.
Okay. Did she tell you you should reach out and talk to her sister, who was also a Young Living distributor in those calls?
Not that I recall.
Do you recall telling her to only have her husband apply for a doTERRA account?
No.
You deny that?
No.
Do you recall her telling you that she was excited about her conversation with you on April 3rd?
I recall her being very excited because she could be part of a company that wasn't religiously offensive to her.
I'm sorry.
That says a lot.
That's such a good line, though. I recall her being very excited because she could be a part of a company that wasn't religiously offensive to her, which kind of goes to show you how religiously offensive that Young Living was at the time.
Yeah,
and
even though they weren't religious, they're just spiritual.
Spiritual, you know,
telling people they were taken over by
Satan, and that they could be cured of their who they were attracted to with Young Living essential oils. Wild. It's awful. Ugh. We don't know what anyone recalls at this point. No one recalls anything. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're back. Man, they're really going in on Justin Harrison.
He just has a lot to say, I guess. do you recall, or do you know how long Susan Bagwell was a distributor at Young Living?
I don't.
Do you know how many years she was beforehand?
No idea.
Peter and Susie Bagwell are now doTERRA distributors, are they not?
They are.
And your testimony is in none of these phone calls or any other phone calls you had with her. You never encouraged her or asked her to join doTERRA.
Correct. To my knowledge, they were in doTERRA before I spoke to them.
How do you know that?
That was my understanding.
How did you get that understanding?
That's just what I always believed.
So let's talk a little bit about Tamalu Watkins.
And the court says, before we start with the next distributor, I'm advised that the jury's lunch is here. So this may be a good time before that gets cold for us to take a break for lunch.
I would never ask the jury to eat a cold lunch. I know better than that.
I don't think we want to wait for them. We'll take a break, and it's about 12 straight, so we'll reconvene at 1 if that's agreeable to everyone. They all say thank you.
Okay, so we're back. 9:23, I guess. Oh, wait, what time? We're at 1:50? Hold on.
I'm still.
I think it goes to 143, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Let me see.
We're on 126. Let me just double check.
When the cross-examination starts, I'm trying to find that. Cross-examination starts at 143.
Okay.
So we just have,
20
and
pages.
that's on the other document that I have highlighted from the email.
Okay, great. Cool. Yep. I have it. I
So
have it.
finish this out.
Do you want to just keep reading till 143 and then we'll start the next reading for the next stream? Okay.
Yeah, that works.
Cool. All right. So line 23, I think.
Okay. The court says, thank you. You may be seated. We're back on the record following lunch. Everybody's here. The jury is here. And I think we're ready to go, maybe. Let's see what it says. Pick up with direct examination of Mr. Harrison, who is still under oath. Go ahead, Mr. Toth.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Harrison, I just have a couple of quick questions. I've done it again. I've left the boards up here. It's kind of obscuring our view of each other. Mr. Harrison, just a couple of questions on some email addresses and phone numbers. Wait, let me just redact this real quick. Talk amongst yourselves. One second.
A doTERRA email. Yeah, I don't know much about essential oils. Otherwise, sometimes I smell them. Yeah, definitely different though. The ones that are, I guess, marketed for hair and face, and the ones you cook with for sure. I use oil every day in cooking, but
I think we're good. I'm just double checking. Okay, we're good. 127. Okay. If you could verify these for us, redacted, is that an email address you've used before?
in the past, yes.
Have you redacted email? Have you used that?
Yes.
Redacted email.
Yes.
That's your personal email address?
Yes.
Have you ever used that for business?
No.
Your cell phone number redacted?
Yes.
And the cell phone number redacted. That's your wife? Oh, sorry.
Correct.
Thank you, sir. Let's talk a little bit about the distributor, Tamalu Watkins. She's also identified on that chart. Miss Watkins' phone number, she testified that she was using in 2008 is redacted. Subject to having that proven up, do you have any reason to dispute that?
I don't.
You had spoken with Miss Watkins while you were working at Young Living, correct?
I don't recall speaking with her while I worked at Young Living.
If Miss Watkins testifies that she had spoken with you, you wouldn't have any reason to disagree with that, would you?
I would be surprised.
You just don't have a recollection of it.
No.
Okay, let's pull up Exhibit 21. And, sir, if you would look at page 153, and in particular, line 774.
Okay, near the end, yeah.
And do you see that this is a phone call that occurred on April 25th at 10:52 p.m.? It's a phone call incoming to your phone from Miss Watkins. Do you see that?
I do.
And do you recall having a conversation with Miss Watkins on April 25th for 12 minutes at 10:52 in the evening?
Not on the phone. I spoke with her that day at our pre-launch event.
You talked to her at the pre-launch event, but you don't have any recollection of talking to her on the phone afterward?
I don't.
And the pre-launch event was April 25th?
Correct.
And if Miss Watkins testified that she joined doTERRA on April 25th, 2008, would you have any reason to disagree with that?
Mr. Smith says objection, misstates the record, and the court says sustained.
Mr. Toth, let's change subject. Oh, wait. Do you know when Miss Watkins joined doTERRA?
I don't, not that I recall.
Let's change subjects. And now talk a little bit about Rio Ogawa. If you recall, she was one of the distributors on this board also. Miss Ogawa, right there. Do you remember that?
I do.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about Miss Ogawa. Rio Ogawa was a Young Living distributor in 2008, correct?
Yes.
And she came to your offices by, quote, your offices, end quote, doTERRA's offices, with another Young Living distributor named Mio Yoshimura, correct?
Correct.
Rio Ogawa was at the time she was living in Japan, correct?
No, she was living here.
Okay, where does she now reside?
In Japan.
Okay, and you bumped into Miss Yoshimura at the Provo Town Center Mall in Provo, is that right?
That's right.
And she came up to you and asked you how things were going at Young Living, right?
She came out to me and asked. Mr. Smith says objection, call for hearsay, and the court says sustained. Back to Mr. Toth.
Do you remember telling Miss Yoshimura that you no longer worked at Young Living?
Yes.
And you invited Miss Yoshimura to your offices, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And she did, in fact, come by your offices, did she not?
She did.
And she brought Rio Ogawa, Miss Ogawa here on our board with her, didn't she?
She did.
And did Miss Ogawa seem glad to see you?
I didn't know her. She didn't know me.
That's not my question. Did Miss Ogawa seem glad to see you?
I can't say.
And you discussed doTERRA with both Miss Ogawa and Miss Yoshimura, correct?
I don't remember our discussions.
Well, when you met with them, you asked her to join doTERRA, didn't you?
No, I believe not. Mr. Smith says, I assume that was Miss Ogawa and Mr. Toth.
Correct. Sorry. Thank you. You did not ask Miss Ogawa to join doTERRA in that conversation?
I did not, no.
Okay, let me ask you to open your deposition, your sworn testimony that you gave almost 4 years ago. Let me ask you to turn to page 136.
Okay.
Sir, the question, if you look at line 10, quote, did you invite them to sign up as distributors or independent product consultants, end quote. Please read your answer.
Is this 48?
Yes, sir. Your answer starting on line 12.
Mr. Smith says, Your Honor, I would object to having the witness read the answer. I'd like the record to reflect the question and answer not read by the witness because it's confusing on the transcript. Thank you, Mr. Smith. The court says, why don't, if you'd rephrase just so it's clear what the question and answer was, that will help. Back to Mr. Toth.
Sure. Hopefully this will help. I will read the question. Start on line 10, Mr. Harrison. I'll read the question, and then you read your answer that follows that. Do you see that?
Okay.
Quote, question. Did you invite them to sign up as distributors or independent product consultants? End quote. Answer.
Quote, as in extending them an invitation, I don't recall, but they did enroll. End quote.
No, you're good. I think let's just not do the quotes and we'll just do it at the very end so it doesn't confuse people who are listening.
Yeah.
Did you suggest that they do that?
Answer, oh, I'm sure.
Question, you're sure of what?
I'm sure I suggested that they enroll. End quote.
Thank you. And in fact, Miss Ogawa did join doTERRA after that, didn't she?
At some point later, she did, yes.
And Miss Ogawa is now a doTERRA distributor in Japan, isn't she?
She is.
Miss Ogawa was one of your hundreds of acquaintances at Young Living, wasn't she?
No.
If Miss Ogawa said under oath, quote, when I learned that Justin was no longer at Young Living, I wanted more information on where he was working, end quote.
Mr. Gaylord says, objection, Your Honor.
Mr. Ta said, would you be surprised at that?
Mr. Gaylord says, objection, hearsay. The court says, there's an objection. Mr. Smith says, objection. No, it's hearsay. Mr. Gaylord says, there's no declaration. There's no deposition. It's an improper question. It should be stricken for the record. And the court says the objection is hearsay. Response? Back to Mr. Toth.
The response is, it's cross-examination. I have a good faith basis for asking that question based on Miss Ogawa's declaration she filed with their motion.
The court says, I will sustain the hearsay objection and strike that from the record. Go ahead. Back to Mr. Toth.
Do you have any reason to believe that Miss Ogawa was not a participant in the trainings or meetings you did at Young Living?
Do I believe she was not a participant?
Yes.
I didn't know Mrs. Ogawa. I didn't know her at all. I don't know if she was at events or not. I have no way of saying.
You have no way of saying whether you made a presentation to her or not?
I have never met her before that day.
And my question is a little different. You don't know, one way or the other, whether she could have been a participant in one of the meetings or activities you did as a Young Living sales manager.
Mr. Smith says objection calls for speculation.
The question is, does he know?
The court says overruled. Mr. Harrison says, I do not know.
Let's talk a little bit about Sheila Hay. Miss Hay is another one of our distributors that's at issue in this case. Miss Hay, do you recall meeting Miss Hay while you were working at Young Living?
No.
If she recalls meeting you, would you have any reason to disagree with her?
No.
Let's put up Exhibit 21 briefly. And Mr. Harrison, would you please turn to line 648?
Mr. Gaylord says, what page?
I'm sorry, 150.
Okay.
And let me direct your attention to line 672.
Okay.
If you look at line 648,
Objection, Mr. Gaylord says, may we have a sidebar? And the court says, yes, a sidebar discussion was had. Back to Mr. Toth.
go ahead and take this down. Did you ever have any phone calls with Miss Hay?
Not that I recall.
You don't recall any?
No.
Okay. Do you remember conducting a meeting in Fairbanks, Alaska near the end of April 2008?
I do.
Do you remember discussing the quality of doTERRA oils at that meeting?
I do.
Do you remember talking about independent laboratory testing for doTERRA oils at that meeting?
I do not.
If Miss Hay testifies that she recalls attending a meeting in Fairbanks, Alaska, where you gave a presentation, would you have any reason to disagree with her recollection?
No, sir.
If If Miss Hay testifies that at the end of your presentation you asked, quote, does anybody want to join doTERRA, end quote, would you have any reason to disagree?
I believe that people in attendance were already in doTERRA.
That's not my question. My question is, if her testimony is that at the end of your presentation, you asked, quote, does anyone want to join doTERRA, end quote, do you have a reason to disagree with her?
I don't recall saying that.
Okay. If Sheila Hay says and testifies that at the end of your presentation, well,
Mr. Smith says, Your Honor, before he completes his question, can you show me where that's somewhere that I can look to cross-examine this witness? I'm entitled to know whatever document he's referring to impeach. And the court says, all right.
Mr. Toss said, let me ask this question, and if he still wants to see it, we'll pull it out. Do you recall handing sorry, I'm a 5-year-old. Okay. Do you recall handing Sheila Hay the paperwork at the meeting so she could sign up? Do you want to see it in her deposition? It's page 64, lines 1 through 4 in Sheila Hay's deposition.
Mr. Smith says, Your Honor, counsel's obligated to show me the document and not say it in front of the jury. So I'm entitled to look at it because it may not be what he represented to the jury. I would ask in the future he can give it to me when I object, as opposed to read it to the jury when he thinks it's what he thinks it's going to say. That's how it's supposed to work. The court says, okay, if you want to show it to him first, that's fine.
Mr. Toss said, do you want me to show your witness first, or if you guys want to pull it up?
Mr. Smith says, yeah, if you could give me the page without telling the jury.
Page 64, lines 1 through 4.
Mr. Smith says, the objection is to you telling the jury. If you have to, you can either give me the page and I'll pull it up. And the court says, go ahead. Back to Mr. Toss.
Mr. Toss being sassy. Okay. Thank you. Do you recall handing Sheila Hay the paperwork at that meeting so she could sign up?
I don't.
And if she says she handed you her paperwork, would you have any reason to disagree with her?
I don't recall.
One way or the other?
Right.
So you don't have a reason to disagree with her. You just don't recall.
I don't have any recollection of giving that to her.
She later joined doTERRA as a distributor, correct?
She did very briefly.
Let's talk a little bit about Gina Truman, okay?
Okay.
We've already discussed earlier you were on the phone with Gina Truman on the evening of February 7th, 2008. Do you recall that?
Yes.
But you disagree with Rob James about really what was said on that phone call, correct?
Correct.
And you made a presentation in St. George, Utah on February 28th at Gina Truman's house, correct?
A fantastic one. Yes.
And she was present at that meeting.
Yep.
And Gina Truman ultimately joined doTERRA, did she not?
She did.
And you deny that you solicited or attempted to solicit Gina Truman into leaving Young Living and joining doTERRA.
Absolutely deny it.
Would you agree with me that Gina Truman is an excellent distributor for doTERRA?
Mr. Gaylord says objection, speculation, foundation, relevance.
He's the master distributor, Your Honor. No one would know his downlines better than he would.
Mr. Gaylord says, we have a motion in limine on this one. The court says, I don't think we've gotten to that point. I'll allow it. Mr. Harrison says, I would say she's a good distributor. Yes.
Here we go. Mr. Harrison, do you recall earlier where I showed you? May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
The court says, yes, of course.
Thank you. Do you recall earlier, Mr. Harrison, where I showed you a copy of the defendant's answers to plaintiff's first discovery requests?
Yes.
And do you recall that was your sworn testimony?
Yes.
And the statement you read to the jury was, quote, Other than Jason Macy, Mr. Harrison did not contact any current or former employees or distributors of Young Living concerning becoming an employee or distributor for doTERRA. End quote. Do you recall reading that?
I do.
That was your sworn testimony?
Based on my recollection at that time, yes.
Now that we've had an opportunity to go through all this, do you want to change that testimony?
It's written right here.
Do you want to change your statement from September 2013?
I don't. I didn't contact them. They came to us.
Your Honor, we move for the admission of Mr. Harrison's redacted statement under Rule 801 D2 as a non-hearsay admission of a party opponent.
And Mr. Smith says, objection, Your Honor, hearsay statement. The statement's been read to the jury already. Still is hearsay.
Non-hearsay, Your Honor. The document's redacted. It's a written statement made by Mr. Harrison, subject to his verification.
Mr. Gaylord says, the question was answered as well, Your Honor. He read it to the jury. There's no reason to publish it. Mr. Smith says, it's still hearsay. Statement used to prove the matter asserted. Neither written declarations are admitted for use of cross-examination. And the court says, I want to understand what you want with page 17.
Only his redacted statement from that, an admission of a party opponent, a sworn statement by the witness. He's now authenticated it. He's verified that's his statement, and we move to have it admitted as evidence.
The court says, I'll sustain the objection. His verbal testimony about it is in the record. I don't see any reason to send the document back.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions. Thank you, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Toth.
Woof.
I think our brains kind of got mushy at the end. Mine did.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a lot of information to go over, but I think it gives a better idea about. I don't know. I really like reading all the information. I wish I'm looking into another program for streaming with other people that I think will let us have the chat on the screen. So I'm gonna. So I'm still looking into it because I want to see the chat on the screen, but StreamYard doesn't allow that. But that was a long one.
That was long. It was, and that was half of the. That was the second half of the direct examination.
Yeah, the first half was
the last time.
Yeah, the last time. So it's 4 hours on one person, and they get a certain number of hours for a whole trial. So I think Young Living has a certain number of hours, and then doTERRA has a certain number of hours. So they spent a long time on Justin Harrison, and we probably went through it faster than even they went through it because there's pauses, there's the sidebars, and the sidebars I don't think count towards total time, but it was still, I'm sure they weren't as talking as fast as Baby Snark. You know what I mean? Dang. Yes, it is full of sass. Mr. Toth is very sassy, and he's extra sassy for, oh my gosh. Yeah, he's extra sassy. Yes, that I thought of that song too when we read that part there's a part on page, where is it? One Way or the Other on page 139. The question by Mr. Toth was one way or the other, and that's part of a song. And
very relevant with Hocus Pocus too.
Yes. Yep. We're watching that in the Discord tomorrow if anyone
wants to.
Nice.
I watched it yesterday.
That's awesome. We're doing October movie nights in the Discord. So
fun.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
We're having non-MLM fun. Discord.
Good. That's important. A palate cleanser.
Yes. Yeah. It definitely is a palate cleanser. So who's the next? Let's be nosy and see. This is they're going to cross-examine him. So this is doTERRA's lawyers going to be talking to their doTERRA distributor, their doTERRA master distributor. So,
is that the song? I'm second guessing myself now. I don't know what song they sang now. I can't remember.
You're right. I'm really bad with songs, but I did think of that one. Yeah. I'm excited for the cross-examination. I'm going to get caught up on our little swipey screens. And yeah, it's been a good time. It's been a good Saturday. I appreciate live chat. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. I'm gonna try to book Avery for our next reading so she can click our things on if I haven't switched over the program yet. And maybe she can highlight some questions, star some questions for us to answer, possibly. And yeah, it's gonna be good. And if y'all don't already follow Kat, please go over and support her and her channel. And if you don't follow me yet and you're not irritated by Baby Snark, I'd love for you to follow me as well. Replay Crew, much love to you. I know there's a good contingent of you who watch these after the fact or in a different time zone. And yeah, I appreciate the support.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know we're in this for the long haul. But I think it's gonna be, and it's all in a playlist, and I'm gonna make, so the covers for the main images are purple. The SparkNotes version, I'm just gonna make like SparkNotes yellow or whatever, so that if you want to catch up, if you're like, man, I'm here for the transcript reading, but I don't want to go back and watch all the other ones, you're gonna be able to catch up, and I'm gonna work on that. I'm gonna work on the first video tonight after we get off the call. So yeah, I don't know. Any closing thoughts, Kat?
I hear my my
Okay.
my 10-month-old kind of crying.
Yes.
That's where my head is kind of. Closing thoughts though. I don't know. I think the direct exam or the cross examination is going to be really helpful for yeah. Learning more about it.
Much non-culture love to everybody. Thanks for the support. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next live stream. We'll let you know what it's gonna be. So yeah. Bye everybody. I'm gonna run the outro.
Thanks,
if I can
Mommy.
find it. Yes, please support Kira. We're gonna be linking her website below in the description as well. So okay. Goodbye.
Bye.